Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I'm back with a new layout for Hip Kit Club, and this is my first layout using the 2019 December kits. And right away, I knew I had to use this paper from Pretty Little Studio. Just look how gorgeous this wreath is. And I'm going to scrap this selfie today. I actually already had this printed out in a stack of pictures, and I like the neutral colors in the picture and how they go really well with the really pretty muted tones in this wreath. And so I'm going to make that work. And I'm going to definitely fussy cut this whole thing out. And it did take some time because it is very detailed, lots of tiny leaves and bits and pieces, but very, very worth it in the end, I think. And one reason I love fussy cutting flowers and leaves like this is because it's an easy way to get dimension on your layouts, because naturally the leaves and flowers edges just want to curl up off the page, and so this is a great way to do that. And this would also make a great background flat if you're not into fussy cutting. I think it would be gorgeous either way. So I've got the outside edges done, and I decided that I wanted to cut out some of the little inner pieces. There are lots of little white spaces in between leaves and twigs and branches and things that scissors are just not going to get. It's just too small. So I'm going to use my X-Acto knife to cut as many of those as I can out. I do wind up leaving a few white spaces, but I think in the end it works and it turns out okay. Yeah, I have to just be very careful with that X-Acto knife because that thing will cut you, speaking from experience. The scissors that I love to use for fussy cutting are those little black and yellow ones. Those are the Cutter Bee brand, and I got those years ago at Michael's, and they are awesome. So I pretty much have this done. You can kind of see how different it looks, and I decided to go with this gorgeous bluish gray cardstock as my background, and I think it's called Coastal. It's in the cardstock kit this month, and I want to do some mixed media around the basically behind where the wreath is going to go. And so to start prepping my page for that, I'm going to start with white gesso, and I'm just kind of dabbing it on and then using my finger. My bottle's almost empty there, so that's why I'm kind of having to bang it down on the paper. But I know you guys, if you've watched me before, you know that I love using my fingers to smudge gesso. I love to have that hazy, cloudy edge, and I've found that just using your hands the best way to get that. So if you don't mind getting your hands dirty, highly suggest using them to blend and smudge like this. So I'm basically just making a big old circle here, and it just looks like a big white circle-y mess at this point. But once I start to add color here in a little bit, you'll kind of see where I'm going with this. But I love how that looks. And I don't want the inside of the circle to be covered up because I want the blue to show. Now, I know I got a question on a recent layout about gessos. I've always used the Liquitex brand, which is the white that I use there. And I have found that using the Liquitex brand gesso, for some reason the Lindys, when I use the magical powders and shakers, it just sort of disappears, and I don't know why. So I started using the Art Basics gesso, and I find that it works a lot better with the Lindys. The colors stay brighter and bolder and truer, and they don't disappear. So I kind of made a boo-boo on this layout. I used the Liquitex brand first, and I was going to go over it again with the clear gesso, and I totally forgot. So when I start to add the Lindys here in a little bit, you'll kind of see, I'll walk you through the process of what I'm talking about if you haven't seen any of my previous videos. But all you saw me doing there a second ago was adding some of the exclusive Pocket Life cards behind my photo. I just wanted some layers, so that's all I did there. I put that aside, and now I'm going to work on the background. I'm going to use 2 of the Lindys colors that we get in the color kit this month. This blue color is called Jana's Jade, and it's a really pretty darker blue color, and it's the perfect match to add some darker shades that match the darker blues in that wreath. So this comes in these little pots, and it's just powder, and you have to activate it with water. So I'm doing it a little bit different here this time. Instead of scooping the powder right onto the background, I'm wetting my brush and then dipping the brush right into the powder. So multiple ways to do this. I'm adding a little bit of blue at the bottom corner, and then a little bit on the upper left corner. And then I'm going to add a little bit of this pink color that we get. It's called Andrea's Azalea. And I would describe it as kind of like a rose gold. Or it's a rose pink with a hint of gold shimmer, if that makes sense. Very, very pretty and shimmery. And these colors match this wreath perfectly. And we also get a third color. It's more of a yellow gold color. I don't wind up using that one on this page, but you can kind of see how bold the color is when it goes down. But when I start to, dilute it with water to kind of spread it around, it just lightens up quite a bit. And that's what I was talking about with the Liquitex gesso. And once I had done about this much on the background, I realized that, oh yeah, I forgot to add the clear gesso on top of it, but it's okay. It works out in the end because I don't really want the background to be super dark. I want the wreath to pop off the page, and I feel like if I make the background too dark, it's going to compete with the wreath, and I don't want that. I want the background to be just that, a background. I want it to enhance the wreath and not distract and take away from it. So I'm just going to spend some time here continuing to add some blue and pink. I want this to be able to be visible behind the wreath and kind of around the edges of it. And I'm not going to do the entire circle. You can kind of see the look I'm going for here. And I think that looks so pretty. I love the darker shades that these powders make for. And I'm also going to add a little bit more around the edges of where the photo is going to go. So I like to work on the background and then bring everything back and test it to see how it looks with everything back on top of it. So something else I like to do to add shading, lights and darks, is to smudge in a little bit of gelatos. Now these do not come in the kits. These are from my stash. And I like to do this before the paper is completely dry. And I pulled out one that's kind of a metallic rosy color, and then more of a hot pink color, and then one of the metallic darker blue colors. And these just kind of enhance the colors that I've already got. So I'm going to add some of the gelato and then come back and add some more of the Lindys on top of it. And I think it's just fun to kind of pull things from your stash to add to what you get in the kits, because you just never know what color you may create, and it's fun to mix and match. I love to do that. And when I add gelatos, I love to use my hands again to smudge it around just like this. They kind of go on real smooth like lipstick, and they smudge and blend really easily. And I think that these colors wind up looking perfect for this. And I'm going to wind up tucking the photo in there on the bottom right, kind of where you see me putting it every time. And I just want to be able to see some blue to the left of it. So I'm going to keep working on that and just work in the layers. The more you add, the darker and bolder it's going to get. And so it's fun to just play around. And when I make a layout like this, the backgrounds take me the longest because I'm never happy with them. I have to keep adding and adding and adding. And yeah, so I let that dry. You can kind of see now what I'm talking about with the shimmer factor. Everything is really, really pretty. And I like that it's still pretty much light. I still have some darks in there, but it's not enough to take away from the wreath. Okay, so everything I've got here on the left of the layout is a huge pack of leaf and floral die cuts. These are exclusive for Hip Kits this month, and I'm going to just kind of pick and choose some of those to kind of tuck in. I want lots of flowers and lots of leaves kind of around where the photo is. And I know this has been addressed already, but I know a lot of the die cuts were cut off center this month, and Hip Kit is taking care of that. I wound up just trimming off some of the edges on the ones that I use, but I tend to do that anyway. Sometimes I think the white edges make it stand out too much, and sometimes I want it to just blend in a little bit more. And so I love the option of using the white edges or not. So I'm going to fussy cut this little floral leaf cluster here from a Pocket Life card, and I'm going to use that on my layout as well. And then off camera, I had to cut this part out of the video because it kept freezing up and shutting down my software. But something that I did off camera here was I added some adhesive foam behind the wreath, and so it's going to stand up off the page a little bit, and it's just the adhesive foam that I use all the time. I just filmed myself putting it on there, and then every time I went to do this voiceover, it froze right at that moment and shut me down. And so I finally just said, okay, we'll just delete that scene. It's not an important one anyway. So yeah, the wreath has popped up off the page a little bit, and I'm going to start to add in some thread. I've got the darker blue color. I've got this peachy color. And I think I've got another color hiding somewhere, but I'm just going to add a little bit of subtle thread. That's all I'm doing here. A little bit of blue on the left, the peach on the right, and then I'm going to start to glue down some of these leaves and flowers that I've got tucked in there. I don't want to move anything at this point. You can kind of see I've got all these flowers and leaves tucked in there. If I move them, I'm never going to remember where they went. So I'm going to very carefully start to just lift things up and glue them down where they are. Like I said, I've got the adhesive foam under there, so I'm just adding some foam or some glue to those pieces of foam and then gluing the wreath down because I don't want to move anything. I love how this is turning out. I love wreath layouts because the wreath pretty much does the design for you. And I know, I can't remember, was it last month or the month before that we got another pattern paper with a wreath? And again, that was the first layout I made with the kit. I cut it out, had to make a wreath. I think that this kind of layout is easy to make because, you know, you've got this big circle on your layout, and then it pretty much can dictate where your photos go. And then you just embellish a little bit around your photo, and see what I was talking about with the dimension, the leaves. It's awesome. So this layout's pretty much done. I'm going to add a little bit of these copper puffy thickers here and there because I just felt like they added the perfect color. They're kind of a matte. They're not too shiny, but they're not too matte. They're kind of a cross in between, and I love that. Sometimes the gold can get so shiny that it's just overpowering, but these are kind of like more of a muted shiny, and they're perfect, and they're kind of a coppery color. So I'm just going to add little sprigs here and there in a couple spots to add some shine to the layout. But I'm still going to add glue because whenever you use gesso, things don't stick very well. So I'm gluing that down, and then for my title, I'm going to go super simple. I'm going to use one of these gold words. I'm going to use love. I couldn't think of a title. I don't scrap selfies that often. And if I do, it's like me at the beach or me at the pool with the kids or something. So I really had no title for this. So I thought, you know what, let's just use love. It's small. It fits right there in that spot. I didn't want a huge title to take away from the wreath. And besides, I didn't want to take up any area above the photo with a big title. So I thought, this perfect right here. Love. That's going to be it. And add in a couple more little bits and pieces. I'm getting close to being done here. I feel like this wreath just made the layout for me, honestly. It just sort of dictated where everything should go, and easy peasy. I'm going to use some of the gold, the Jen Hadfield glitter spray that we got in the November kits. And then I just added the date. I didn't even really add any journaling because this was just a selfie, but I love how this turned out. I love the dimension. I love the colors. The colors are so pretty, so different for me, but I instantly fell in love with them, and everything matches so well. Here you can see all the details of all the fussy cutting, all the flowers and the leaves. And I hope this inspires you to fussy cut. I know a lot of people say they don't want to take the time to do it, but I promise you, if you do take the time to do it, the end results are awesome. And yeah, just kind of lose yourself in the moment and start cutting. And I promise you, you won't regret it. But let me know if you have any questions about the kits. I hope you guys are receiving your kits, or if you haven't, you will soon because they are gorgeous and beautiful. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great week.